Hey guys, it's Majesty95 with PX1 Sports, and bringing you a video today talking about all of the improvements coming to connected franchise in Madden 17, or actually just franchise or cloud franchise. I think they're actually getting away from the connected franchise, which hopefully means they're bringing back like a superstar mode or a single player mode like they used to have back in the day, which is what happened when they went to connected franchise. But that's a different story. Hopefully that's coming down the road. Lots of stuff came out of EA Play today, a couple of blogs that came out talking about franchise mode today. So wanted to get into that, kind of talk about all that stuff, how it's going to apply to our leagues and leagues in general. So we'll get started and jump right in. The first thing we'll talk about is one of the things, it's one of the more minor things out of all the things that's been done, but it's one of those things that's really a cool feature, I think, in that you see on the bottom of this screen is the score from games around the league. Now, one of the things that they said will happen if you're playing like an offline or a solo franchise, those are going to update. And if you are at, say, 1 o'clock game, then the scores from around the league are going to show and update like they're actually being played when you are. If you're in an online franchise like ours and you have other games being played, then it's going to show scores from games that have already been completed. So, if you're the first guy to play, you're probably not going to see scores from any games. You wouldn't, because you're in an online franchise. But if you're the last guy to play your game in an online franchise, then you should see throughout the game all of the scores from the other games that have already been played while you're playing, which is a really cool feature. Very nicely done with that. Glad they added that. It's something that a lot of guys were wanting, and that's something that they added in NCAA. And so we were waiting for that to come to Madden, and finally they got that in there. The next thing is going to be moments. This is something that doesn't really affect our franchises, online connected franchises or whatever. But going into like a single player franchise, this is something that's really cool, in that you have an opportunity just to play moments. So you guys that are familiar with MLB The Show and quick counts, they're trying to speed up the game so it doesn't take as long. We've always had Super Sim and stuff like this. I think this is kind of an answer to it, and actually pretty cool one, honestly, in that you can decide to play the full game. You can play just as offense, you can play just as defense. For those of you that like to play just as a coordinator, that can kind of fit what you're looking for. Or you can just play as the defining moments in the game. And as you see there, it says a 20-minute experience. They're trying to shorten the game down to 20 minutes, allow you to go through it. In the video they're talking about it, I think it was Mike and Mike, you can maybe go through an entire season and get to the playoffs in like one weekend. And so for some guys that don't necessarily want to play out the whole games, that they want to hit to the key moments and they want to get through their seasons really quick without super simming the entire game, that's something that's really cool that's added. I think that's going to be something that a lot of guys are going to find value in. Those just you're adding an extra element that more guys can get involved in franchise and keep them in the game longer, which I think is a great addition. Part of that same moment is, you see on screen here, it's going to get to a point in the game where it says, a big play comes up and it's going to tell you what the situation is, and you have the option to jump into the game and play it, or you can skip through it, which is very cool. And then you also have the option to adjust the speed at which it's Super Sim, so you can do slow, which is going to be watching the game out, and you won't jump in until a key play. You can do normal, which is probably the normal sim, and then you have like a super fast one where it's just going to jump to the play and not show you any field art or anything of what's going on in the game. So just added things that they talked about. Obviously you see on the screen there, it's going to talk about what the big play was. If you're simming until the next key moment, I guess this would probably be the normal mode, is kind of what it would look like. The old Super Sim, but with a new facelift, which is actually pretty nice. So those are pretty cool. They're not the major parts of it, but definitely cool features that they've added into the game that's going to add a lot for people that play franchise mode. Now the big things for a lot of us is going to be when you actually get into the heart of franchise mode. And I was actually talking to some of the guys the other day. I was like, man, the one thing that's really missing for franchise mode is when I have a bye week, or say I play my game early in the week and I'm waiting for everybody else to play, I want stuff that's going to engage me more and give me more things to do. And I think they're starting to work in that direction, which is really cool. So when you start your season, every season, from what I understand, you're going to be given the opportunity to pick your goal for the year. Now you could be make the playoffs. You probably have something as high as winning the Super Bowl, and then they even said you could have a lower goal, like maybe win in 7 games. Hopefully you can even set it lower than that, but maybe that's enough by itself. The cool thing about it is going to be that you're going to get more XP the more lofty the goal, and this is going to apply more of the offline franchises than online, but in those situations where you set a lofty goal and you don't make it, then you increase the risk that you get fired because you set a really lofty goal and then you didn't meet your expectations. So that's kind of cool. We'll have to see how we can incorporate that into an online franchise. I don't know if it's going to be a situation where everybody can say, hey, I'm going to win the Super Bowl this year and I don't have a penalty if I don't because, we're not going to get fired or whatever. We'll have to see how that plays out. But for an offline franchise, which is one of the things that I thought needed a lot of improvement so you could captivate guys that want to play, franchises on their own, that's a really cool new feature because now you have some decisions that go with it. Now you have a little bit of anticipation and hey, am I going to reach my goal? Might I get fired? That's always something that's cool to add in there for gamers, I think. Another thing, and this is probably one of the biggest features to me that they added, and this is one of the ones that's been talked about a lot, I know in our leagues and online, is lingering injuries. Before, when you got somebody injured, you know exactly how long they were going to be out for. Now, they might get it extended a game or two, but it was never, they're either out or they could play. Now, they're going back to what we used to see in that guys will have injuries, but be able to play through those injuries once, quote unquote, cleared by the doctor behind the scenes or whatever. And the example on the screen, you see Donald Penn, he's got broken ribs. And it's actually affecting his rating. Like his injury rating went down, his stamina rating went down, and his strength rating went down. And so now you're faced with the decision: do you want to have him play through the injury, re-risk injury, or do you want to go with your backup? In this situation, it looks like the backup's the better way to go because he's going to get double XP and the coach is going to get double XP. Now the difference would be, and one thing I'd like to see on this screen is just outside of just the risk reward, I want to see what McCann's key attributes are. If he's only got 78 strength, or maybe he's got lower strength, or if he doesn't have really great stats, I'd like to see a little bit more there because then I can make more of a decision. Obviously, you can click the player card and you can go through and you can figure that out on your own. But if you can eliminate those steps by just having it all on one screen and you can make the decision right away, that would be cool. But definitely a great step forward that way. And I think this is going to please a lot of people. Is now you're going to have a lot of decisions to go through, and there's risk reward to them. And I think that's definitely a good direction that we're trending in that. We have to make more decisions and we have more control over how our team does, not just win or loss, but little things like this that real teams would go through are actually going to affect us more, which I like, and I think a lot of the guys in our leagues are going to like. The big decisions are going to continue to go through all different levels of the season and the off season. This one's re-signing players. It's going to be a big decision. Are you going to re-sign your guy? Is that going to be... I think it's going to be kind of similar. I don't know if they really laid out the risk rewards other than what was already there. If you undershoot him on what he's asking for, he may get mad and say, I'm going to test free agency, I don't want to re-sign you. That was kind of already there anyway. But it's just, it goes along with the big decisions, and that, hey, you got a decision to make here. Actually, is this guy going to replace him? And do you want to go with him, or are you going to keep going with Von Miller, that kind of thing? So that's kind of cool. It'd be nice to see a little bit more in depth what the risk reward is there, if at all. But just another step in the next direction, or in a positive direction, in adding more things to keep you immersed in it. Same thing with free agents. This one's kind of interesting. I don't know if this was the best screenshot actually, because your number 3 wide receiver on the depth chart you see on the left is 75 overall, and the two guys that they're recommending you sign are both 73 overall. So I don't know if that's really a decision a lot of guys are going to make, but it is interesting that you can scroll through your decisions or through your positions and you can see where you need to make an upgrade, and they'll suggest guys for you. I would imagine you can probably, if you click non-interested, I wonder if maybe, or actually it looks like you can scroll on the side, you can scroll over to see other guys. So that's really cool. You can just scroll over and see who they are. Maybe if you click non-interested, they'll just disappear and you can line up the next two guys or whatever. So just so again, another added way they're trying to make it a little bit easier to do things in franchise. I know a lot of our guys have to go into daddy leagues and look at all the ratings and everything. Here, now you can click the player card, you can see their, a couple of their most important attributes, you can see their development trait and all that in there. So that's really cool that you have more of that access right on the screen right now without having to look at a secondary thing to figure out how it's going or what you want to do. And then cut players, kind of the same, again, same screen. We're going to see these same screens and big decisions a lot. This one is actually, it looks like it's recommended. You get to a point in the preseason where you need to cut one guy, and it's going to give you a recommendation. Now, I'm sure you can probably hold down R2 or the right trigger and scroll through by position and make those yourself, but this one, it's looking like, this is probably one of your positions where you have the most depth, and they're like, okay, these are the two guys that are most likely. So it makes it easy for guys that don't want to put a whole lot of time in their roster, but then obviously it looks like you can scroll through position by position if you want and still have that screen, which makes it really easy. So those are all really cool features, all things that we're definitely really interested in. Going on to some of the more meatier ones in the game, we'll start off with one of the things that commissioners of online franchises have been asking for a long time is added features to control what goes on in your franchise. Now we have the opportunity or the option to edit everything about every player. Now, I don't particularly like the ability to edit ratings and stuff like that because it leaves open the opportunity, the more people that you have in an admin role that could maybe go in and try to sneak something in there. Hopefully you don't, but you never know. Different leagues are different. That could always be something. However, one of the things that they may have put in place, I thought that through, let's hope, is how when you're in the off season and you make a change to a player's position, it shows that in the transaction or in the news or whatever. If they have that set up, or anybody that has commissioner access, anytime they make any kind of change like that, that shows up in the news, then that's cool. That eliminates it all. It's all very transparent. I hope they added something like that. And if they did, then it doesn't really matter. If they didn't, then that's something hopefully they can add in the future, but would make it kind of questionable for some people, just depending on what kind of league. You join a new league, you don't really know. It could be something that makes you a little bit nervous. But hopefully they added something in there where there's transparency. You always know when something like that has changed. I don't know if it's something that we would actually use in our league very often as far as editing the players. They say you could load up the franchise and you load up one of the rosters and you could go in there and you could change things. Maybe, if we find out there was a bug like last year where all the right tackles were losing a lot of XP or were regressing very badly through the first season, well, maybe this is a way around it where you don't have to stop playing or cancel your franchise. You can go in and edit things and kind of manage it until they put out a patch or whatever. That's definitely something that could work in there, which is cool. It's a nice option to have. One thing that's really beneficial that we've seen and that I'm most excited about is that we have the ability to edit the contracts, and that's not something that necessarily I want to go through and do on a regular basis, but we've seen situations where guys come in and they're not really experienced at what they're doing, and they give out some really crazy contracts, and then they wind up leaving, and now those teams are saddled with these horrible contracts, and so it's hard to find owners to fill those teams, or the owner takes over and they lose interest because they can't do what they wanted to do because these really bad contracts were signed. Well, now we have the option to go in there and change those contracts to something that's more fitting to what that player is, and that will give the other owners more flexibility. Again, it's all going in line with what the dev teams talked about, is giving the player more control over what they're doing, everything. They want to give as much customization to the users, and this is just one of those, and that's one of the really cool things. I know another thing that we ran into in the past, not so much recently, but when you're a new league and you're getting a lot of new guys and having to test guys out, you get guys who join a league and don't really pay attention to the rules, and then they get punished for breaking the rules, and they get mad and they just act out and they want to release their best players right before they quit because they didn't agree with taking the suspension. Well, again, now we have the option. We just re-sign those players back to certain teams, and then we can edit their contracts back to whatever they were or whatever we think they should be, and then that way the person that replaces that user isn't handcuffed with a team that lost all their players or all their star players are on one-year contracts. So again, another great step forward in the right direction for the franchise, and one of the features that's probably not going to be looked at as one of the bigger ones for the majority of the community, for leagues like ours and for commissioners especially. It's definitely a great move in the right direction. The next thing is one thing that I think is really big, and I tweeted out about this, and I think this is maybe one of the bigger features, and again, I don't know if it's going to get lost in all the other stuff that's in there, but now we have dynamic XP, or not XP, but dynamic development. So from season to season now, you might draft a guy early on that has superstar development, or maybe let's say you even draft a guy late in the draft and he winds up having superstar development, but he's only like a 65 overall or 70 overall, and you just drafted him as a depth player, but he wind up having superstar development. Well, you don't wind up using him at all, and he sits on your bench for 3 years, and then you release him. Well, in previous versions, that player would sit out there and they'd have superstar XP, and people would go to daddy leagues and they'd scroll through and find the guy with superstar XP and sign him, hoping to build him up. We didn't have a whole lot of option to build them up first. You have to put a lot of work into them, but you're also signing a guy only for the fact that he's got superstar XP, and you're trying to get, find a diamond in the rough in free agency, which isn't very likely. Well, now the guy that has superstar XP, he doesn't play very often. He's going to lose that. He might drop down to fast, or he might even drop down to normal. I don't know if they can only drop one or if they can drop multiple, but that's cool because a guy that's not playing very much, he shouldn't maintain his superstar development if he's never getting any work put in. So that's one thing that's really cool. Another thing is that they said the development trait's also going to play a role in how long the player plays in the league. So a guy with a slow development might only be in the league for a few years, which is, the normal NFL player is only like 2.5 or 3.5 years, something like that. So maybe you'll see a guy with slow development. If he's not being used very much, he's going to retire after a couple of years, which would be kind of interesting. On the flip side, if a guy goes up, has superstar, or works his way up to superstar development, that might be a guy that sticks around in the league for 10, 12, 15 years. So that's really cool. And the fact that it's dynamic and it can go up and down is very cool. You can't draft a backup running back that got superstar development, just sit him like, hey, I got the superstar development guy. Well, if you're never playing him, he's never playing, he's going to lose that superstar development. And so that's all just another added piece of strategy and stuff that goes into it, and it will give you something to look at and manage, and again, just one of those things to do in between games and stuff like that. Just more stuff to look at, the more stuff to immerse you in the franchise, which is really, really cool. Now, one of the things that's going to get a lot of talk, I'm sure, is going to be game planning. This is one of the things that I think is really, really cool, in that now before every game you get to decide what your game plan for that week is. And here it says, the offensive game plan is you're preparing for a zone blitz. You're playing a team that's going to zone blitz a lot. So it's what concept are you going to focus on the most to prepare for that blitz? On the flip side, it said, say you're a cover 2 team, you can focus on your defensive game plan being cover 2. And what that means is not only do you have certain position groups that are tied to that might get extra XP, like here, the spot pass, your quarterback and your tight end are going to get extra XP by using that part of the game plan. You're also, both sides of the ball, whenever you go out there and you run these concepts that you are part of your game plan, then they're going to have a heightened, your ratings are going to have a small bump, so that, because it's kind of like, you practice this all week and now you're running that in a game, so you're going to execute that play that you've been practicing all week better than you would a random play. On flip side defense, you're playing cover 2, where you're going to get a little bit of a boost because that's your core defense. And if you go to a cover 3 or a cover 1, you're not going to get that ratings boost because that's not who you are. That's not what you've been practicing all week. So again, just more strategy, more things to think about when you're going into a game. It's going to affect the XP that you get, not only in the drills but also in the game and the people that you can boost up. So that's a really cool addition. I'm really interested not only to see how it goes this year, but how they expand on that, because that's one of the things in online franchises where you have a lot of different users, you want to kind of have options for this. This one right now I think is more tailored, more or less just towards XP and kind of picking up base level, but this is something that could really be expanded on. And if Madden has the ability to track stats in a more deeper level, and you can go in and do a game plan and you actually get to see, okay, my opponent runs cover 2 this percentage of the time, cover 3 this percentage of the time, they run the ball this percentage of the time, they pass the ball this percentage of the time, they use play action this percentage of the time, this is their favorite play that they like to run, this is the favorite route that they like to run. That stuff, if we get that level and we can have that kind of statistical analysis, now it makes game planning even more appropriate, because now you can say, okay, I'm going to play a team that runs the ball 58% of the time, and let's say they run outside 60%, and their favorite pass route is a streak. Well, now you're saying, okay, I know I got to prepare for this guy to run the ball, and I know he's going to run it outside, so I want to make sure that I'm calling plays that are going to defend the outside run, and I'm cognizant of it, but then I also have to be aware that he likes to throw streaks down the field after I'm biting up to stop his run. So stuff like that would all play a role, and if they can include that in game planning, maybe you have cover 2 man, or if they add some combo coverages where maybe you blitz off the edge, but you drop back into a base zone behind it to kind of defend against the deep ball or whatever. That kind of stuff would be really cool because you get bumps in that, and just that cat mouse game that goes back and forth and allows the user to kind of think through what they're doing. They could expand into that, would be really cool. I think this is a great start on it, and I'm really excited to get into this. But then just the options of where they could go with it, are kind of mind blowing and a lot of fun, I think. So once you do your game plan, as I was talking about, when you go in there and you picked what your primary focus is going to be for that week, here it looks like a drive play is what they picked for offense. So now anytime they pick a drive play, they're going to get small boosts through catching, route running, throw power, and throw accuracy. So it's not a huge addition. It's just a very small one, which is okay. I mean, they could probably even boost it up a little, but I definitely like the fact that they err on the side of caution and do underdoing it versus overdoing it. Because I think we've seen in the past, sometimes they bring in stuff like that and they get like a 5-point boost and then it's overpowered and then it can be exploited. So I really like the subtleness of what they're doing. They can always tweak it up a little bit easier without really ruining anything, versus if they overdid it, then it could always be a problem. So I definitely like that. That was definitely a very cool thing that they did, and just a little added thing that you get for each game that you play. One thing that kind of goes along with this that is kind of tied to the gameplay, but it's a little bit different, but it ties into XP in that now one of the things that we really had a problem with this year is that with the way the drills were designed, you could only go with certain positions, and certain positions got more than others. Like, it was really easy to improve quarterbacks. You could take a quarterback from like an 82 overall and get him to a 99 overall in just a few seasons, but if you drafted an 82 wide receiver, in a few seasons he's probably an 85 wide receiver, because it was really hard to boost him up. Well, now you have the option to pick 3 players every week who you want to be your focus training on, and those guys are going to get more XP through your drills and through your game, just because those are your focus. So that's kind of cool. Like, now you can focus on, you got 3 rookies or 3 young players that you want to build up. You can do that, and hopefully, wide receivers and offensive linemen are going to get the same kind of treatment, so that if you want to work on your new left tackle that you got, or your number 3 wide receiver who you're grooming to be your number 1, backup safety or something, whatever, you can always change out who you want to work on and get one to where they want to be. Then you can always change and go something else. You can change them every week. That's one thing that I definitely liked that I saw. One thing that I didn't include in here that I forgot when I was putting together screenshots that I saw is one of the screenshots showed after a lot of XP had been accumulated, a couple of players had like 30,000 XP. And I know a lot of us have talked about XP, and the progression for the players needs to be somewhere kind of a balance between what it was in Madden 15, where I had a guy get like 90,000 XP after one season, versus last year how it was hard to get 5 or 6,000 XP for a guy, somewhere in the middle. Well, if some guys are able to get 30,000 XP, that's a huge difference. Hopefully, we'll have to see how it plays out. I know some people might be kind of scared and say, oh man, that's too much still, like, let's find a middle ground around 10 or 15,000. We'll have to see how it goes. I mean, if you get 30,000 XP, but that only allows you to boost your player up 4 or 5 points overall, I think we can see that happen. I mean, when Tom Brady was drafted in the 6th round, he was probably, like a 70, 72 overall, and at certain points through the Madden career, he's been a 99. So he's definitely gone up 4 or 5 points in one season. Just going to depend upon how easy it was. Now, one thing they added last year was the slider for commissioners. They could dictate whether they wanted slow XP, normal, or fast. Something we didn't use because we had already started our franchise, but we're really interested in. I would imagine they've incorporated that again. So now you can kind of test it out and say, okay, this seems like there's too much. Let's change it and go to slow, or no, this isn't enough. I want more, so let's boost it up to fast, and you can get more XP from it. One of those things we're going to have to test out and play with as we get started, but it's definitely something trending in the right direction, giving us more control over who we boost up, who we want to focus on, who we want to become our stars, and along with the dynamic development, if we're not paying attention to guys, we could shorten their careers. We could, decrease how quickly they improve. So all things I think that are definitely trending in the right direction. Definitely great overall news. I was really excited. I was watching the EA Play, and then the blog released, and going into it, like, I was just like, man, this is probably the most that's ever been put into a Madden game that I can remember, and I've played every one since Madden 92. So the unfortunate part for the devs is I think people are going to think, oh, this should happen every year, and I don't think that happens. I know with Madden 25, when they switched to Connected Franchise, I know they had been working on it behind the scenes for like 2 years. So I would imagine some of the stuff that they're unveiling now, not just in regular gameplay, but in franchise, they've probably been working on behind the scenes for more than just 1 year. And so we're not going to see this level of improvement every year, but hopefully we can find a balance between just some minor improvements and what we got now and have continuous improvement every year. Either way, I think it was an amazing step in the right direction for the dev team. Not only what we've seen with gameplay and presentation and the new commentary team, but now franchise mode has got a ton of new things that we've been asking for. Practice squad, I didn't even cover that in there. I had a screenshot that was up earlier, but I skipped over and didn't even talk about it. We got the practice squad now. Now, I don't think it's as big of an issue as a lot of guys do, because it looks like just a subgroup of 10 guys that you can have, kind of like a minor league team, and you can call them up and send them down. I don't know. They didn't really say whether you can bring them on the field and you can practice with them. I would imagine you could. You can kind of test them out, which is kind of cool. But on the flip side, they're free agents still, even though they're on your practice squad. Somebody else can come around and sign them and offer them a contract and sign them. So you don't have them. It's cool. I know a lot of guys wanted it because it's something in the NFL. I think it's a nice small addition. I don't know if it's going to be a huge deal like a lot of people think, but it is. Again, it shows that the dev team's listening to what we want and trying to give us that, and I think we can only be excited about that. So just want to put that out there for those of you that missed EA Play, or might want a quick recap of what went on. Hopefully that gave you everything that you wanted to know in just a few minutes. Be sure to like it and follow for more stuff on Madden 17, our leagues, and everything that we do. If you got any questions, comments, things that I missed, things you want to talk about, leave a comment. Be happy to talk about it. You can also visit us on px1sports.com, where we have our VIP Madden League, and we talk about Madden nonstop. So we'd love to see you on there. Come try out, be part of our league, or just stop by and chat with us. Hope you guys all have a great day. Hope you enjoyed the video, and we will see you guys next time.